Hey everyone, and welcome back to Soundproof. We're back. It's been a brief hiatus. Well, brief is relative. Time is all relative right now as we all are locked inside of our homes. But as always, my name is Brendan Lewis. I go by Mr. BDog46 on the internet. And I am joined, as always, by Jake Major Bowman Muller, who had a brief conversation about maybe introducing himself differently. Jake, did you want to go ahead with that, or were we gonna?
No, you kind of ruined it because you already said like my name and stuff.
All right. Well, anyway,
it wasn't anything specific. I was talking about how one of my favorite like YouTube talk shows, they like introduce themselves as something ridiculous every time. So saying that might have been funny, but Brendan ruined my chance, so it's fine. Whatever, just keep going.
All right. Well, you've got that to look forward to in future weeks, Jake. Perhaps he might be able to bust it out. But of course, we have been off for 2 weeks. VGC is kind of at a standstill right now, and it's been a little difficult to drum up content to kind of pump out that's still fresh and exciting without a whole lot going on. So we've kind of slowed down the pace of what's going on with our podcast at the very least, but we are going to try to keep to at least the bi-weekly uploads, even if it ends up just kind of being like a shorter version of our podcast. Yeah. And I think that's what we're going to go with this week.
Yeah, so we're going to still do like the typical first half where we talk about like the ladder in tournaments and that kind of thing. If we are feeling particularly inspired certain weeks, we'll like do a full second half with possibly a guest and stuff too, but like sometimes there just isn't a whole lot to talk about just because there isn't super a lot going on right now in any aspect of life, including VGC. Right,
and I know we are filming, and I guess you guys will get the episode the weekend that was supposed to be the Berlin International Championship, which is
sad.
Kind of a bummer. I know a lot of people were looking forward to that. The game had kind of taken off this year, in my opinion, and it would have been a really well-attended event. There are some phenomenal European players, some of which we'll get to talk about in a little bit, but that's kind of a bummer. But nonetheless, we'll give you a VGC fix every 2 weeks. And of course, we'll try to be a little bit more diligent. So our apologies, but we're here now. So let's talk about our Dash 19s for episode 19. And it's kind of a hit or miss bunch this week as I glance over it here.
I would call it mostly misses.
Mostly miss, but there are a couple of cool ones in there. And one of the first Pokemon is the number 19 is kind of like a Pokemon that is forgettable by design. And it's Rattata.
It's in the top 1% of all Pokemon, Brendan.
That is true. It is true. Actually,
that's like all I have to say about it.
It might be outside the top 1%. 19. I'd have to do the math.
No, that was a joke about Joey.
I understood it and I ruined it intentionally. But yeah, Rattata is kind of like a very, very linked only to youngster Joey as far as its existence in the Pokemon universe. And
it's the only thing people remember it for. That and like fear stuff. Do you remember? Do you know anything about that?
I do remember that. Was it ever something you could EV train on? That's the only other thing that I would think that it might have.
I don't know.
It's got to be attack, right? I don't know.
I actually have no idea.
Number 119 is Seeking, which is a Pokemon I don't particularly care for, but I know is that has like a cult following. Like some people really like it.
Was Seeking on like the Twitch Plays Pokemon run? Am I remembering that correctly, or was it not?
No, maybe at some point it was. I don't have a strong recollection of it though.
Seeking's like fine. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion of it really.
Yeah. It's just like kind of like a generic water type Pokemon. There are a lot of water type Pokemon that kind of fall into the Seeking vein. Number 219 is Macargo, which is kind of an interesting Pokemon. It's historically terrible in VGC, like awful, like bottom tier. Like you couldn't possibly find a way to put it onto a team. But it's one of those Pokemon, kind of like Garbodor, that kind of finds its way into TCG, and that's one thing that I always think is really interesting is when Pokemon that are like absolutely abysmal in the video games like find their way into the card games a little bit.
I find that funny with Pokemon Go too. Like there are a lot of like super relevant Pokemon Go mons that are just awful classically in any other sort of competitive Pokemon. Macargo's not an example because it's still trash and Go, but just nice comparison to sidetrack us a bit. I think it's a cool design though. I actually really like Macargo. I think it's like a neat Pokemon. It's like clearly like they knew what they wanted to do with it, and I think they executed it well when they were designing it.
Well, design-wise, I don't think they wanted to do anything with it competitively. They were like, it's
well, yeah, that's what I meant.
We're going to give it a whole bunch of defense, but no defensive typing to speak of.
Yeah.
The next Pokemon on our list, 319, is a Sharpedo. I thought, while we're talking about Pokemon design, that this was really interesting from like a more competitive aspect, because this was like Glass Cannon, like the first Glass Cannon.
Was it? Was it you that I was
first.
talking to? Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the last podcast that we were saying the exact same thing.
Oh, like that? No, like the half shark thing. You didn't realize it was a
yes,
half?
I didn't know. I didn't know it was half a shark until like all through Ruby, Sapphire, Emeralds. Like I played all of them. I loved all of them.
Yeah.
But like in all of their sprites, I was just completing the shark in my head. Like I didn't ever think that it was only half the shark. God, like because it's very easy. Like if you look at the sprite, I'm gonna pull one up later.
Especially the back sprite. Like
you can. Yeah. Right, you would think that at least in the back sprite you would see it, but you can very easily like complete a tail in your head, and
definitely,
like, you would expect one to be there. It's bizarre. Another somewhat forgettable water type, Floatzel. Don't particularly care for the Pokemon. I think it's pretty awkward looking, honestly.
Yeah, I do. I like Weasel a lot, but I think Floatzel just kind of looks kind of awkward is I think the best way to put it. I do like my favorite thing about Floatzel was from the anime when Ash was playing, or when Ash was in Sinnoh doing like the gym challenges, and like it was his Weasel against Crash Awake's Floatzel for that gym badge. That was a fun sequence.
The thing about Floatzel that always gets me is it's like designed. It's like it's supposed to be really fast, right? Like this fast swimmy otter thing, and it just looks really like slow and bulky and awkward because it has swimmies on.
Yeah, like the floaties. Like, why would you ever be fast when you have floaties on?
You shouldn't need the floaties.
I know. And those would like objectively slow you down if you had like floaties on your arms.
Yeah, there'd be more drag in the water.
Yeah. Side note: do you call them swimmies? Is that a New England thing?
Yeah, swimmies. I never used them myself, but I think that my exposure to them, they were always called swimmies.
Huh. Good to know.
Anyway, 519 is Pidove. Another Pokemon that was like literally designed to be the pigeon in New York City.
Yeah, exactly. I never like connected it to New York pigeons. That makes sense because Unova.
Yeah,
that's cool.
In the board meeting, they were like, we need a pigeon. We already have Pidgey. What are we gonna do?
Let's just literally make it a pigeon.
We'll ship it anyway.
Yeah.
619 is Mienfoo. I think that's a pretty cool line.
I do too. I think they're great.
Yeah, I think Mienshao is one of the first Pokemon. I think one of the 6 Pokemon that was on the first like VGC team that I ever took to an event.
Oh, cool.
So it has that little place in my heart.
Yeah.
And Mienfoo I've always liked because it's like a staple of Little Cup.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Mienfoo's been the face of Little Cup for like the entirety of Gen 6 and
forever,
7.
Yeah,
and like probably 5 too when it was introduced. But like in the time that I've spent playing like somewhat serious competitive Pokemon, especially getting involved on Smogon, Mienfoo has always been like a top 3 Pokemon in Little Cup at least.
Yeah, it's really good. You can put it on. Like, you can stack fighting types if one of them is Mienfoo.
Right.
And fighting types are really good in Little Cup anyway, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Mienfoo it's a cool Pokemon. The design is neat as well. I think they're cool.
For sure.
719 is our token legendary of the week, mythical.
Same thing.
And that
is there a difference?
Diancie.
I don't know.
I mean, technically there is, but I'm not.
Well, yeah. There's okay. Is it like a square rectangle thing, where like all mythicals are legendaries, but not all legendaries are mythicals?
I think.
Or are they just entirely separate?
I think they're supposed to be entirely separate.
Okay.
But the line was kind of blurred in Oris when Deoxys was just like kind of inexplicably obtainable in game.
True. Yeah.
And they were kind of like, look over there.
We're going to space now.
So Deoxys is either a mythical or a legendary, but I think otherwise they try to keep them separate.
Okay, makes sense.
But yeah, Diancie is the Gen 6 mythical. It
There's one of
really
2.
I don't. What's that?
As it was one of 2. There's Volcanion too. It's one of those gens that has multiple.
Volcanion. Yeah, I just don't like the Diancie is, I don't know, it's kind of like doesn't fall into the story at all, and like its whole lore is like basically Carbink like mutated randomly or something and became a mythical Pokemon. So
yeah,
I don't know, it's cool though. I think
that's
I always
all
thought
true,
it was interesting competitively. I know Mega Diancie was a big deal in DOU for a little while.
Baby Diancie is an even bigger deal
because it sets Trick Room. That's basically the set. Like it was a really, really strong Gen 7 set.
Not many people used it in Gen 6, but I think like we've gone back to playing Gen 6 in certain tournaments since 7 has been out, and even currently, and that set has kind of made its way there too. Mega Dancey was way more popular in 6 than 7, but both of them are like really good, and well, Mega isn't super great, but Baby Dancey's incredible, so it's fun. We all call it Baby Dancey instead of like normal.
It makes sense. I mean, when the Mega was, more prevalent in the way that you talked about it previously, it makes sense.
Yeah. It's cool though. I like the design too. I like the colors.
It's pretty. I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of forgettable, I think, but
a little bit.
It's because a lot of mythicals are just like they're out of your out of sight.
Yeah, there's no exposure. Like you have no reason to keep thinking about them. Yeah.
Right. But Pokemon that you do have a reason to think about, 819 is Squovit.
Do we? Do we really?
Squovit is awesome. Like what a great Pokemon.
I feel like when we first saw the stats of these mons and saw Greedent, we're like, oh, Cheek Pouch, Belly Drum. We thought it might be like the next Snorlax. Like I heard it called that multiple times, and then we actually got the games, and it's just not even. Oh, we can talk about that next week. But yeah, Squovit's cute. I will give it that. It is definitely a cute Pokemon.
My first impression, and this was I didn't spoil myself going into Sword.
Me neither. It was great. It was so fun.
And I was playing through the game, and I saw Squovit, and I popped off. and I remember going onto Twitter and tweeting
I would die for Squovit.
I really hope that Squovit evolves into the biggest, jolliest squirrel, and I was not disappointed. That is exactly what it evolves into.
That's funny.
I was afraid it was going to be one of those things where it goes from happy and then it evolves and it becomes angry. And
yeah,
it's angry battle squirrel. But it was much better than anything I could have hoped. It was perfect. Greedent is perfect.
We'll both get to gush about it next week then.
Yes. Yeah. People were really forcing Greedent onto teams at certain points of the form. Anyway,
yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for our Dash 19s. We'll talk about the Dash 20s in 2 weeks. But for now, we are going to fire up our new favorite website. I honestly look at this website every day.
It's amazing.
I really do.
He added support for OU as well.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. It's the same kind of thing. You can do the usage stats or the full team thing.
Yeah, such a great website. I seriously use it and troll for teams every day.
It was made by, I don't think we typed with this last time. It was made by Kelvin Kuhn, who used to be a pretty prominent VGC player. I don't think he goes to events too often anymore, but clearly still involved in the scene because he made this amazing tool. After we talked about it on our last episode, he messaged us on Twitter. He's like, "Oh, thanks for the shout out." Blah, blah, blah. Something honestly I forget. I could look it up on my phone right now, but I talked to him for a little bit about it, and I was like, "Oh my god, thank you! This is such an amazing site." So everyone, go tell him thanks. It's an amazing tool, and go use Babiri.
By the way, I don't think we actually
we never actually said it.
Was Babiri.net, Babiri as in the berry, the one that Togekiss holds.net. And it's basically a website that just kind of pulls the top 100 available teams for the VGC ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for a way to find out what's popular on the ladder, and of course you have to take that information with a grain of salt,
right?
Babiri.net will show you. If you IO next all your games, it won't pull them. It doesn't have access to anything that we wouldn't otherwise have access to, but it does pull all the teams that have replays available. So let's talk about them. We'll go through the top 10. I know there's one that Jake and I kind of already have circled on the page that we'll get to in a little bit. But the first one, number 1 on the ladder, it's actually number 2 technically. But number 1 on the Babiri ladder is a common combination of Pokemon that we're going to be seeing quite a bit this week. The Dragapult, Ferrothorn, Incineroar, Primarina, Tyranitar, and Mimikyu. And all it's missing is Dusclops to be just kind of the sort of standard that's going around right now.
I kind of like Mimikyu popping up a lot recently. I think is pretty neat. I imagine that's a pretty direct result of the Pokéalex Rio Passer team that had the Triple Ghost team that they did well at some events with. Because I didn't really see much of it before that, but now it's making its way on other teams, and I think it's neat because it had Phantom Force. I think is a really, I don't even know if it's underrated anymore, but I think it's a really good move.
There's some just crazy plays you can bust out with Phantom Force.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. It's
you can do some really cool plays with Trick Room and Phantom Force. You can do some really cool plays with dodging Dynamax moves with Phantom Force, which I think is a really neat option you have with it. I don't know, it's cool, and it's it's a strong Ghost move, which is what Mimikyu was kind of lacking beforehand. So neat tool.
Right. Yeah, I think Mimikyu was partially because of the Triple Ghost team, and also it was on Wolf's second place Dallas team, or not Dallas,
Collinsville.
what was the other regional? Collinsville.
Yeah.
So it kind of like had a couple of really good showings in a short amount of time, and like nothing about it has changed.
Right.
It still kind of does the same thing that it always did. It's like a reliable trick room setter. It gets access to all these different moves, and then you can give it like Swords Dance and Life Orb and make it do damage. You know, it can get Will-O-Wisp, it gets Safeguard, and then, you know, it's a viable Dynamax with Starfall and Phantasm both being, you know, relevant attacks. So it's definitely like not a surprise to see it, but it always takes somebody to kind of like push it into the limelight, which is exactly the same thing that could be said for Primarina, which is now
right.
the flavor of the week Pokemon.
I know you have a lot of experience with Primarina, if you want to talk about that for a
I think
sec.
it's really good.
Yeah.
I feel like I was like slightly out ahead of it. I think there were a lot of people that were playing this sort of construction in the Champions Cup, but like in the wake of Champions Cup, it's now all over the ladder.
Yeah.
It's, you know, one of those Pokemon where it does really well in Trick Room. It's like slower than Milotic, so those like quiet Trick Room Milotic comps are kind of like beat by Primarina because it can win under Trick Room. It's really bulky. It has like a lot of HP. It takes special hits really well, and especially if you Dynamax it, it gets access to, you know, Geyser, Hailstorm. It has grass coverage, Starfall. Obviously, it's just
Mindstorm.
Like
You're in Psychic Primarina.
it could, yeah, but it's just it kind of like it does. It's kind of like Tapu Fini, except it does damage.
Right.
And the next team on the ladder, number 2 for us this week, is another team that has, you know, a couple of flavor of the week Pokemon on it in Dracozolt, Milotic, Togekiss, Grimmsnarl, which is kind of making a little bit of resurgence, Excadrill, and Mimikyu.
I really like Dracozolt, if only because it provides a lot of aesthetic value to a team.
Yeah, the green,
it's like
the yellow, the
super
red.
colorful. Yeah. Otherwise, it's like okay. To me, Dracozolt is like a wannabe Durant, in that it's a mon that you almost always want to be maxing, but it's just a little bit slower and it has less immediate power. But I mean, it's like it's cool. That's fair.
I mean,
Volbeak is really
does
strong.
like a nuts amount of damage.
Right. That's a neat team. I like that Grimmsnarl's coming back. I think it's always been a solid mon. Like Prankster has never been bad. And like screen support is good, like fake tier stuff was good. You have Togekiss in this team. And I guess Milotic that can benefit from fake tiers.
Right.
Thunder Wave is never bad either.
Yeah, it gets so many moves. And now it does have access to its Gigantamax, which like sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I would ever run that.
Like why not? And the trick eject button stuff is starting to pop up all over the place too. Like it's not just a gimmick anymore. Like if you see a prankster, you have to expect that it could be there.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think Dracozolt is like interesting. Like it's really scary, but it's also one of those Pokemon that you have to like construct a team around to make it work. It's not like, okay, I want an electric type. Let me smack Dracozolt. Like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Our number 3 team this week, another Grimmsnarl alongside Excadrill, Arcanine, Dusclops, Rotom, and Hatterene.
I mean, yeah.
Sure.
This is like okay. It's not really anything special to me. It just kind of they're like it's 6 good Pokemon all thrown in a team, and like I'm sure you can win plenty of games with this team. But it's not really something I look at and get like super excited over, if you know what I mean.
See, I kind of like it. I kind of like the hard Trick Room option, where like you can just kind of like play bulky good stuffs with like Rotom, Grimmsnarl, Arcanine, Excadrill.
Yeah.
Or you can just be like, I'm gonna put Dusclops, Hatterene in your face and like force you to respect it.
Like I agree to an extent, but I think Hatterene without Indeedee is like way less intimidating. Because
I don't know about that.
Like Smite is still super good. Oh, that's fair. You have fake tiers. And like obviously you can set your own terrain, but you don't get the immediate like max power Mindstorm. Even though like I will never talk smack about Smite because Gmax Smite is ridiculously good.
It's too good.
Yeah.
Honestly, too good. Like it just shouldn't exist.
Yeah. So like I feel like if you're going for like a hard tricker mode, this team could probably be a little bit better. But I get this team. Like you could certainly still have that Trick Room Hatterene mode. But you can play like the bulky good stuff too, like you were talking about.
Right. And we'll talk about another very wildly different Hatterene team. This is the one that we kind of were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
That is the Crackhead team of the week. The team featuring Durant, Indeedee, Hatterene, Torkoal, Charizard, and if that isn't Crackhead enough for you, the last Pokemon is Stonjourner.
This is crazy.
It's just like a lot to take in. Like if I saw this in team preview, I'd probably like have a quick cry and then regroup myself and try to figure out what the heck is actually going on here. But it's just like the offensive options are like nuts. Like you lead in DD Hatterene, you set Trick Room, and then you switch Stonejourner it on turn 2. Or like you sack in DD for Stonejourner, or like you lead Charizard Torkoal, and then you switch Stonejourner in for Torkoal on turn 2. Like, what the, like that's so much damage. Or you lead in DD Durant, and if there's nothing threatening Durant, you switch in Stonejourner on turn 2-1.
My one gripe about this team is that there are like 3 Pokemon that really like Dynamaxing in Durant, Hatterene, and Charizard. But like even so, like Hatterene, like Life Orb Hatterene and Psychic Terrain still does a ton of damage even if you're not max. And same with Charizard and Sun. So it's not like that's a deal breaker at all. This is just wild. Like the plays you can make with Stonejourner are kind of insane.
Yeah, it's like a lot to think about. I think you really need to like know your calcs to be able to play this correctly, because if you lose offensive pressure, like it's donezo. If you miss a KO or like you mispredict and intimidate switching in or something like that, like you're over. That's it.
The cool thing too is like if you have Helping Hand on Indeedee, you can basically have like 2 Stonejourners, if that makes any sense. Like I don't know.
I mean, you could, yeah.
Not like 2 Stonejourners, but you have like 2 chances to boost your partner's
like a bunch
attack.
of ways to boost it. Yeah,
that's more what I meant.
I think one of the craziest things about Stonejourner is like potentially one of the optimal ways to run it is like Scarf Rock Slide and no other moves. like you could theoretically, like it's fast enough where it could just sit there and like click Rock Slide and be doing more than you would want it to do anyway.
Right.
Like you bring it for the ability, why not get some Flitch chance?
I never even thought about that.
What a terrifying Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, I never want to see that. Keep Stonejourner like away from me. All right, the next team on the ladder does have a unique Pokemon on it, but not quite as unique as Stonejourner. The team being Arcanine, Braviary, Tyranitar, Shiftry being the kind of stick-out Pokemon, and Rotom and Clefairy to round it out.
I don't really get what Shiftry does, like in general. Like we watched the replay.
We could say this for any number of Pokemon: it's a Grass type format without Grass types.
Yeah. Like we watched the replay and it was Life Orb, Leaf Blade, Sucker Punch, I think is all we saw. Which is probably about what you'd expect from it. And like it's fine, I guess. Like it's probably Chlorophyll, which is neat. But even then, like you don't really have much of a Sun matchup.
What are you doing to Charizard?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you doing to Torkoal?
So I don't know. Like
what are you
it's
doing to
probably
Venusaur? I don't know.
I think is it slower than Venusaur, isn't it? Or is it not?
I think it's base 80. Maybe it ties.
Oh, they tie then? Okay. I don't really know my Shiftry stat spread well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that anyone should really have to know.
Right.
Number 6 on the ladder this week, I believe, is this Nantaro's team? This is something similar to what Nantaro was running.
It is Nantaro.
And I think, I think he had tops the ladder briefly at some point, but he's using a team of like Togedemaru, I can think of the name of for Vanillix, Mimikyu, Dracovish, Dragapult, I'm struggling with names.
I know.
And Braviary. I do this even like when we're streaming, and I just like am staring at the Pokemon and I can't think of its name. But yeah, this is kind of like it's like a Togedemaru team, I would say. It relies heavily on like Togedemaru's speed control, and then gets to do things with like Dracovish, and then you like paralyze paraflinch stuff. And I watched him play a couple of battles, and it was a little scary. Like I wouldn't want to look at Togedemaru on turn 1 in a format where it's like realistically one of the fastest things in the format. Right.
That's kind of neat. Like Dracovish with speed control at all is pretty scary. And if you have something like Tailwind on Braviary, or like Nuzzle Togedemaru, like you said, that's pretty cool. It's like another like Mimikyu Dragapult combo. This double ghost is kind of popping up everywhere. So maybe that's what Shiftry's niche is beating all the ghosts, but it's cool. I like
it. Could be.
It's neat.
I feel like it doesn't even beat some of the ghosts.
I mean, probably not.
Like Dragon, Dragapult, Perry, or Max Dragon, Wormwind, Dragapult is what I try. I said Dragon, Dragapult. Obviously, it's Dragon type. Like I don't know. Let's stop talking about Shiftry. I don't want to do it anymore. The next team on the ladder, number 7 for us this week, is a team of Durant, Venusaur, Clefairy, Braviary, Primarina, and Tyranitar. I was like getting ready to pat myself on the back for how well I did with the names, and then I couldn't get the last one out. God.
This is neat. I like Clefairy. Like we all know, Durant Togekiss is a pretty good combo, and Clefairy Durant kind of does the same thing. You still have Follow Me, you still have Helping Hand. You have Friend Guard, which is neat.
Friend Guard is neat.
Yeah, and like Friend Guard, I think probably helps, especially Dynamax Durant survive some hits a little bit better.
Yeah, it actually directly affects the calc for Heatwave Arcanine.
Okay, I was wondering if there was something specific
Mm-hmm.
it did. That's cool.
Yep.
And like with Clefairy, you can. I like the Braviary on this team too, because if you had Durant Togekiss, Braviary is kind of redundant, but now you have that option with like Intimidate, Deterring, and it's a solid partner for something like Durantar. So this is neat. I like it.
There's some Braviary showing up this week.
Yeah, it's coming back.
It was like a week 1 Series 1 Pokemon.
For sure,
all
yeah.
of a sudden it's like popping up in Series 3. Number 8 on the ladder this week is a Lapras team that is kind of like Fevzi's team, but has a Raichu on there. It's got Togekiss, Incineroar, Conkeldurr, Lapras, Dusclops, and Raichu.
Raichu's kind of neat with Lapras. This isn't the first time I've seen them together.
I think that's what you usually run the weakness policy one, right? When you have Raichu,
I would imagine. You could like side
and
volt
switch it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's cool. It like kind of borrows from Fevzi's team, but has like a more offensive option to it.
Yeah, no, it's neat. I like Conkeldurr. I think is kind of sneaky good. It's not like
super good.
It's usually not going to win you games solo, I think, but it's really good against a lot of common stuff, and it can patch up matchups really well.
It gets like Drain Punch gives it a way to like stall out some pretty crazy end games too, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, true.
Like against like you beat stuff like Gastrodon and
no, yeah, that's a good point. I think when we were doing the Beast Coast thing last week, there was like a Gastrodon Conkeldurr endgame kind of thing.
Oh yep, that's right. Maybe that's why I'm thinking about it. Number 9, another Lapras team that I believe is Fevzi's team. This is a team of Lapras, Arcanine, Tyranitar, Mimikyu, Dusclops, and Conkeldurr. I'm pretty sure that's the 6 that he used to win the cup.
Yeah, it is. We'll talk about that one a little bit later.
I've seen a couple variants of his team just from Fevzi alone, so I have to remember like what he's using at any given time. Yeah. Right now they're running Sableye, the Fevzi team variant. So that's interesting. You can look forward to that.
Yeah.
Last team on the ladder this week is very similar to that kind of like standard Ghost, Primarina, Ferrothorn stuff that we were talking about. But this time with 50% more Ghost. There is Primarina, Dusclops, Ferrothorn, then the Mimikyu, Dragapult, and the little wrinkle on this one being Rotom Heat is the selection for the fire type slot.
I like Incineroar better there, I think.
Yeah,
but
Incineroar's really good.
Rotom's cool. Like Electro types are solid. That Rotom Heat does have some pretty neat matchups, but I think for the most part, if you want to fire, especially on a team like this, like kind of a bulky team that likes to play longer games, Incineroar is a much better candidate there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of gives you a little bit more of an offensive option. Presumably, like all Rotoms are running Nasty Plot right now,
right.
So it gives you a way to kind of set up if you wanted to do that. Having Mimikyu and Dusclops on the same team like gives you a lot of board control because you can like run either one of them and use them to kind of like set speed control.
Yeah, definitely.
Or Dusclops does things like haze and I don't know, they impact position a lot, which I think is interesting. And having both of them giving you different options is kind of cool. Anyway, that's the ladder for this week. That sort of team that we just talked about is freaking all over the place. It's like every team on like 1600 ladder. I don't know, we're talking about what's a little bit higher, but those teams are like, if you were to scroll down through Babiri through like the top 100, I'm looking down right now. 14, 15, 16 are all like pretty much the exact same thing. There it is again at like 20, 21. Like those sorts of constructions are very, very popular right now. So if you're looking to get onto the ladder, make sure that you definitely have a way to deal with those teams. That's my tip for the day. So let's move on and talk a little bit about Champions Cup, which was, of course, the biggest, I'm sorry, Jake, VGC tournament ever. I think you'd lost your title a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I lost that title to the 2017 tournament that was on Smogon, but I can still claim that I won a tournament that was at the time the largest, so it's fine. It's all good.
That's true.
Care.
You can. You can. But this was the largest ever, and honestly, it's hard to envision a scenario where it's really challenged.
Yeah. How many? It was like 1500,
the two names that were
1600?
running it are just like, how else are you going to approach that as far as like VGC oriented star power?
Right. No, very good point. The Wolf and A-Drive, and especially their entire team of, tournament organizers, flight leaders, the entire squad. I know that Zach Carlson was like the head TO there, and there were a lot of
he ran it. Yeah,
a lot of flight judges and flight runners and everything. So big thanks to everyone that helped out, and of course to Wolf and A-Drive for getting the ball rolling. But, massive congrats to Febzy for winning this tournament. We just kind of mentioned his team before, was that Mimikyu, Arcanine, Lapras, Tyranitar, Kinkeldurr, Dusclops team that, like, I don't know, is Febzy ever going to stop using Lapras at this point? Like, I feel like that's just kind of his brand.
I mean, it's just like he plays it so well. I don't know.
Yeah.
That he's really given a reason to like deviate from it. And I like he's on United, so I've seen him like play some other stuff, but it just like he like ascends when he plays Lapras teams. Like all the end games just like make so much sense to him.
Yeah.
He just like knows what buttons to click, and he even plays out of like some tight situations too. And I think he's pretty well established at this point that like Clay Lapras is like the correct way to play it. Like it's not doing damage even when it does have a weakness policy boost, so you may as well take advantage of the extra Aurora Veil turns.
Right.
But yeah, he just like plays like a virtuoso with that team. It's like just unbelievable to watch him play.
It's really fun to watch him play too. He's so like methodical.
He's so good.
Yeah, it's good. It's like just the best way to describe
he's
it.
So good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was awesome. So big congratulations to him. And I know he beat Edu in the finals, who continues to just kind of like every team he makes is just like meta defining, and that's kind of like
for the past like 4 years too.
Waves. It's like and it's always just like it's good stuffs. It's like just kind of like the best variant of good stuff that's out there at any given time.
That's a really good way to describe it. He's really good at building those good stuff teams that just become like I'm not gonna say they're like easy to pick up and play, because like obviously you still have to be like thoughtful and like good to like use them effectively and get results with them. But it's those kind of teams that there's usually not a whole lot of like spice to them, and like in like the best way possible. Like he uses really good Pokemon in really good combinations, which
and he does kind of like have, like they're teched, right? Like
for sure.
He's kind of like pioneering like the bulky weakness policy Excadrill stuff, which is now starting to pop up all over the place. And he was using that really well throughout the tournament, where he would like Swords Dance on a turn that he took an attack, and then like be at +4 as he was Dynamaxing the next turn, like stuff like that. That he obviously pulls off because he's better than everyone.
Right.
But also like the Wide Lens Venusaur is like a really neat tech.
I love Wide Lens so much. I use that in DOU. It's so good.
He's got some really neat stuff. So again, like he's arguably, I think you could very easily argue that like the two players that made finals of this tournament like are the best two players at this.
I would not fight that. Yeah, they've both had
like
incredibly consistent results.
Right, and there haven't been a lot of tournaments, but Edu was runner-up at an international at OCIC,
yes.
Right? He was the runner-up there, and then Febzy, at top 8 at Malmo. So these players are both like incredibly good, and this is like I don't want to bring a sad note to it, but this is like the kind of run these two players are on, is where you think about what a bummer it is that they're not gonna get to play at Worlds.
Yeah.
Like where it's their year, it's their format, and all of a sudden it gets pulled away. But anyway, let's talk about some of the teams that are here in top 8. I believe the other two top 4 players were Damo and King DJK. So we'll talk about their teams a little bit.
PokeAlex and DJK.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
PokeAlex and Damo was top 8.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. But Dimitri was running a Dracozolt team that's actually a unique 6. I was kind of wondering, going into the tournament, whether or not there was any innovation to be done with Dracozolt. It seemed like it had kind of topped out with that Dracozolt Clefairy team, but he managed to mix it up a little bit. And I think the notable thing about it is the pairing of Whimsicott and Dracozolt,
I was going to say
really
that.
scary.
Yeah. No, I really like this version of Dracozolt. I think some of the Dracozolt teams I've seen, like, are a little bit too reliant on Dracozolt for like damage output, I think, and some of them kind of fall apart if the Dracozolt doesn't get going. But this is definitely not one of those teams. Like, he's got the Togekiss Excadrill, which has established itself as incredibly good. And Togekiss itself like still continues to amaze me with how much damage it outputs, because it's not ever been a Pokemon in the past that has been your main source of damage. But I think it's a really cool, like super well-rounded team. It's a Dracozolt team that isn't like super pedal on the floor like hyper offense, which I think is unique. And the Whimsicott Dracozolt is that like super fast offense option, but you still have plenty of other ways to play this team, so it's cool. I like it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that jumped. Like, if you were to see this team in team preview, you were like, okay, if I can't stop Whimsicott Dracozolt, like, I will lose this game, so I have to make sure that my lead, covers that combination, if nothing else. Like,
Right.
I'll lead Intimidate and risk the Milotic lead if I have to, but I do not want to get Whimsicott Draco's ulted. So yeah, he had an awesome run into the top 4, and I think he actually lost to Fevzi. They were talking a little bit about their set. I know that's a tough matchup for Fevzi's team, so I would have loved to see that one.
Yeah.
But the other top 4 was PokeAlex, who is running a Colossal team, which has actually kind of like made its way into the meta, as opposed to being kind of like one of those niche crackhead teams where, like if you can't surf on turn 1, you lose. It's actually like being run by good players. It has good alternate modes. And he's got a team of Dragapult, Incineroar, Durant, Colossal, Gastrodon, and Venusaur.
I really like this take on Colossal too. This is something that I got to cast him playing, or we did in Beast Coast last week too. It's fun to watch him use it because, like you said, like Colossal, I think in the beginning was kind of the epitome of that kind of crackhead offense archetype that people like to run sometimes. There were some kind of slower, like we saw A-Drive use it at New Jersey in that MSS
right?
ladder.
Yeah, that was serious.
And
too.
and that I wouldn't call that like a crackhead offense kind of team, but I really like Colossal. Like, it's a fun mon to use. I really like the construction of this team too, because you have like another like reliable surf benefiting partner in the Gastrodon. So it's not like that's a dead slot on the Dragapult if you're not bringing Colossal. If you have the Gastrodon Dragapult, you can get the surf boost. I like the Durant option here as well. It's another like super threatening immediate turn 1 like damage outputting threat. I think like at first I was kind of skeptical of Venusaur on non-Sun teams. You could say this about Edu's team too. But these kind of teams are kind of proving me wrong there, because I think Venusaur has some like super strong matchups in this kind of format, and Sleep Powder, or Sleep in general, is like crazy good right now.
Yeah, especially with Dynamax, where you can just deny Dynamax entirely with Sleep is kind of ridiculous. And I wouldn't think that this Dragapult is running it, but Venusaur Dragapult is a really strong combination. I know Edu's team was running this because you can just Airstream Sleep Powder the stuff that would like otherwise try to shut you down. Like Safeguard Arcanine, it just goes to sleep like before it gets the opportunity. So it's stuff like that you can kind of do, and when you don't have to worry so much about missing. I know Wide Lens is kind of the new hot thing right now for Venusaur to run. It's interesting. And for these sorts of constructions, and I know the one thing, and I know we talked about this when we were casting, is that the Dragapults are kind of like supportive now. They're not trying to run offensive Gastrodon. And Wolf, I think, I don't know if they announced the final results, but I know he was running like double screens on his Dragapult on a team that was like pretty similar to this. So it's stuff like that Dragapult can run that, can add another layer to the team instead of, it just like attacking all the time, or, locking yourself into Scarf Surf or something like that. So it's really interesting.
Right.
And then, so the other teams, kind of rounding out the top 8, we'll kind of run down them a little bit, is notably Dareth96 is just running like the older variant of Fevzi's team, which kind of goes to show like how good of a team it is. He's got the Alcremie variant of it from earlier in the format. I think those are the 6 that Fevzi used at Malmo. A trainer named Liliana. Some of these players, their in-game names I'm not able to place, so I apologize if this is, somebody that I should be referring by their Twitter handle, but I don't know. Was using a Gardevoir, which is kind of an interesting Pokemon that you could argue might be a little bit underplayed right now.
I think Gardevoir is kind of neat. I'm struggling in my head to come up with a reason to use it. I'm
Trick Room.
Oh yeah, I guess. I'm entirely positive that it has a good spot on this team, so I'm not trying to talk down about that choice. But it's neat. Like, this is the first one I've seen do well in this format, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, I don't want to say inexplicably absent, but you would think that it would have, some presence, given that it's like a Pokemon with high stats. It has a ridiculous move pool.
I don't know if I'd say Gardevoir has high stats. It has some like really, really low stats too. Like HP and defense.
Well, it has the stats that
are both pretty sad.
That's true. That is true. Damo in top 8 was running a pretty standard-looking team with those 2 ghosts, of course, of Dragapult, Incineroar, Rotom Wash, Togekiss, Conkeldurr, and Mimikyu. So that's, a pretty common, I don't know, if I can definitely place the 6, but a lot of common Pokemon on the team. And then rounding out the 8 is another take on Lapras that we talked briefly about, I believe, a little bit earlier, that was run by Maddie Moo, with the Raichu, Incineroar, Lapras, Togekiss, Kelder and Dusclops. So very, obviously has ties to, Fevzi's construction, but Lapras does kind of add a little bit of a different element to the team.
Yeah, I think this is the same 6 we saw in the ladder, right?
I think it was.
It's neat. I like the Raichu option. There aren't like an abundance of electric types in this
sense,
format,
right? Yeah.
but I think if you do face an electric type and you have that Raichu there, it just makes the matchup like almost impeccable. Because I think a lot of teams that have those electric types use them to beat Lapras. Oh, I guess Rotom. Why am I forgetting Rotom?
I was gonna say I think Rotom is like one of the Pokemon that matches up well against this team, like notably well. Is that if you have a Rotom on your team, like you're never not bringing it against this comp.
And like Raichu gives you a really nice way to play around.
Covers that. Yeah, definitely. All right, so that's top 8. We have top 32 here. I'm not sure if there's anything else that we really wanted to talk about, or if there's anything we want to highlight.
There's
here,
a Slurpuff.
Jake.
It's kind of fun.
Slurpuff.
Slurpuff with mail and DD.
Was that the weakness? Oh no, it was that was the support one, I think, wasn't it? Where it was like Unburdened Psychic Seed with like fake tears or something.
Oh, that's
like that.
cool.
I think I saw that somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe it had like Mystical Fire.
That makes sense.
It
has
like
Torkoal, Venusaur, and DD mail. Those are all good fake
so
tears
it was
ones.
like fake tearsing everything, and everything else was like using special attacks and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. There's like a rain comp that I saw that I was kind of interested in with like Dragapult, Ludicolo, Pelipper, Togekiss, Sableye, Duraludon.
Yeah.
I think that's the U-turn weakness policy stuff. I'm pretty sure.
I believe that. Justin Stipe is very happy to hear that.
That was like a week 1 type thing. Let's see, anything else we've got going on in here? I don't know. I think a lot of the teams that were able to make it into the top cut here were teams that I would consider to be like, pretty close to what the meta is. There's a lot of Conkeldurr, there's a lot of Dragapult, there's a lot of Incineroar. Those are like the 3 Pokemon. Obviously there's a lot of Togekiss. Those are the Pokemon that are kind of jumping out to me.
Right.
Quite a bit.
In top 32 there were 16 Togekiss.
Yeah, so there you go. This was kind of like on the forefront of Primarina, so you were like slightly ahead of the times if you did have Primarina here.
You were using Primarina, right, in this tournament?
I was using Primarina, yeah. I almost gotten through the whole show without talking about it, but I was 7-1 going into the last round and got knocked out on a 1 HP survive, which was pretty brutal. But I was playing against Aura, who's like a phenomenal player, and I think ended up making it into top 16, so I didn't feel too bad about it. But it was tough. Yeah. I've missed win-ins at like the last like 3 out of the last 4 big events that I've gone to, which feels really bad. We'll get there. We're getting back. But yeah, I was using Primarina, but it was more of like a hard Trick Room team. Primarina was like the fastest Pokemon on the team. And it was like almost min speed. So that's the sort of team I was running. It was really cool. But yeah, Primarina is awesome. Very good Pokemon. Highly recommend. Very good. So the last kind of Pokemon-oriented thing that we do want to talk about before we get into our music for the week, as I'm going to remember this week, Jake's not going to have to remind me, is the tournament that Jake and I have been casting for, which has been a lot of fun. So cool. A lot of fun. The tournament is called the Coastal Invitational. It's run by an esports organization called Beast Coast, which has been a pleasure to work with. And they brought us on to do some of the casting. And it's basically this like 8-player tournament. There are 2 pools, and it's like 8 of the best players ever, basically, for all intents and purposes.
Like there's no one in this tournament that you could even like begin to make an argument of them not being like a phenomenal player. Like they've all established themselves. We should like run through the 8. I know it's James Beck, Alex Gomez, Pokealex, Aaron Zhang, Seijun, who we all know, Marcus, who again we all know. I'm struggling, so please help me.
It's Alexis, Francesca Pardini.
We could just look this up.
I feel like literally just casted the matches today. I should be able to think of it.
Jamie Boyd.
Marcus already? Oh, Jamie.
And then,
Did you say James Beck?
I did. That was the first one. Who's number 8? Oh my goodness. Oh, Edu.
Oh, and Edu, of course. So we were just talking about Edu. So yeah, those are the 8 players. So we didn't get them out.
We tried.
Those are the 8 players. And they're basically like there are 2 group pools, and they're going to advance to a knockout. And there's like a $5,000 prize pool, which is really cool. So it's been it's a really fun tournament. There's been a lot of like the match that I got to cast today with Lee between Aaron and Marcus was like excellent. Really, really good match. Really good play from both players, which is kind of what you expect to see.
Right.
Some of them have kind of been stomps just based on like team matchup and who knows their matchups better than the other one. But when you actually get to see like two players playing with teams with they're good with, like duking it out is like a true pleasure to watch. So if you're looking for some VGC to watch during this kind of downtime, the tournament does take place Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is GMT -4 right now. If we do have international listeners. Not that I'm, patting my own back that we've gone international, but I'm sure we've got some folks out there.
Worldwide, baby.
Yeah, Jake and I aren't casting every day. I think Jake is casting. Are you on Tuesday? This
I
coming
don't
Tuesday
remember,
you're casting?
honestly. I'm on one day next week.
I think you are. I think Jake is casting this coming Tuesday, so if you want to hear his voice a little bit more, Tuesday at 3 Eastern, GMT -4.
I'll be with Kiriakou.
Jake and Luke Romy, who we have no choice but to stay.
I'm not with Lou till semis. The week after.
Oh, I thought it was this.
No, I'm with
one.
Ben.
Are you sure?
I'm positive I'm with Ben.
Do I not just know the schedule better than you? Are you sure?
No, because Ben and I are going to practice this weekend.
Is awesome.
Already.
Yeah, we've gotten to work with like the three best Brits.
I know, Lee, Ben, and
Lou,
Lou, and then the sixth
phenomenal.
is Evan Hashimoto, who used to do Pokken, but is now crossing over. He's been doing great too. Super fun. I think the most notable thing to come out of this tournament is that Lou and I will get to wear our powder blue blazers that we have, turned into fashion icons as a result of together on stream. It's going to be on Tuesday, the day of April.
The day, so it's got to be what? So Tuesday, so
Tuesday, it's the 28th.
So it's going to be the 28th. The 28th.
Tuesday, the day. Oh my God.
Yeah, the
so
day.
Tune
Good
in.
job. You got it,
Tuesday,
Jake.
the 28th of April, 3 p.m. Eastern.
And then I think the 30th of April, which is going to be the final, might be the first VGC TriCast ever. I think we're pretty exclusively a two-commentator esport, but instead we're going to try.
You're on that, right?
So you've got that to look forward to. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's me and Ben and Lee, so that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, anyway, we've been a part of that. It's been a lot of fun. Definitely check it out if you're looking for some content during the week, or even if you're looking for some content not during the week, you can always go watch the VODs. That's an option as well. So the last thing that we will talk about this week, as always, is our music. And I know I usually hate these. Like, honestly, they flood my timeline. It makes me really annoyed. Is that, like, one VGC player will, grab something from Normie Twitter and start some, like... I'm sorry.
No, it was great.
and start some trend where every VGC player then has to post this picture, this number of likes. I'll tell you.
Yeah, one like
how
equals
many
one response.
Cats I've owned. I'll tell you. Last time I ate Lay's potato chips. All this random stuff. But this one was really cool. It was a trend where players were, tweeting out the album covers of 4 albums that they could listen to front to back without skips.
It was super fun. I really liked this trend. It was very wholesome.
I had to think a lot about it.
I did too. And it wasn't like, oh, can I find 4? It was like, okay, I need to cut my long list down to 4, which was kind of fun to do.
Yeah. No, I thought it was really cool too. So
do you want to?
Jake's gonna go first.
Oops. Anyway, mine are more important. My 4 were Now Not Yet by Half Alive, Nothing Happens by Wallows, Vessel by 21 Pilots, which surprises a total of 0 people. I literally have a lyric from that tattooed on my arm.
I had a hard time not putting that into my 4 as well.
And then Pure Heroine by Lorde. But specifically the extended version, because the bonus tracks on that album are absolute fire. I literally bought a keyboard to learn to play one of the songs, Bravado, on that extended album. So it's amazing. I've talked about all 4 of those already on this podcast, so I won't go super into detail. But
yeah, I think so. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit. I'm pretty sure they all have been featured, and I was saying the same thing. I'm pretty sure I've talked about all 4 of mine as well at some point on the podcast. But in no particular order, they are Third Eye Blind, self-titled, which everybody should at least know. Semi-Charmed Life and Jumper.
Yeah.
That's the album that those 2 songs are on. But even front to back, just unbelievable, musically important, and just every song on it is really good. And then Southern Air by Yellow Card, which is more of a personal favorite. I wouldn't expect everybody to be on board with that. And then Fearless by Taylor Swift. If you want to argue about Taylor Swift, slide to my DMs. I could talk about it all day.
This is also a call out to Luke Romy for putting Reputation on the list. Reputation. Reputation. Oh my goodness.
We're doing call-outs this week.
If you're gonna pick a okay, we're not gonna do this. I love Lou.
But
this
anyway,
is her.
Fearless
this is her
mine.
one fault.
Fearless is mine. And then the final one is Dookie by Green Day,
good albums.
which super good album, also musically
Yeah.
important. So
It was honestly hard.
yeah.
Like there were three, like my final three cuts, are even like amazing albums too. I think After Laughter by Paramore, Emotion by Carly Rae, and
that was a final cut for me.
and then
as well.
Bloom by Troye Sivan. Those are all three albums that I adore. So.
And while we're doing call-outs on the podcast this week, Jeremy again needs to listen to Emotion by Carly Rae Jepsen before he tweets anything about it ever again.
Oh man.
The album changed my life.
I did like this trend because it exposed people in their, I'm not going to say bad music taste, because I don't think there's such thing as a bad music taste, but bad opinions about music. Let's say that.
You really get an idea of who people are. But anyway, as for what we're listening to this week, one of the albums, and the reason that I went back to this album is because Joe Brown actually put it in his 4 albums.
Oh, did he? That's
good
cool.
buddy
I didn't know
Joe
that.
Brown. Yeah, that's why I was thinking about it. But the album that's most known by the band Echosmith called Talking Dreams, which is the album that has like Cool Kids on it, and songs like I think Bright is on that album as well. So you've heard those songs, and that's kind of the album. Like the whole thing is really good.
There's a song on that album called March into the Sun, and back before I started like naming all my Pokemon for teams like from the same album, I would just like pick and choose songs that I liked. And March into the Sun is what I named most of my Groudon in 2016. So that's cool.
That's a good name. I was going to ask what Pokemon it was. Yeah,
I love that album. I think Echosmith is really fun. We both discovered right before we started recording that Echosmith actually has a new album out that they released this year.
Yeah, like
so I'll
recently.
be listening to that.
I hadn't heard anything about it. Yeah.
My album this week is Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia. I know that I mentioned her singles on this segment.
I was going to say, I thought you talked about Dua Lipa in some
I have, yeah, but the full album came out, and I have listened to it many, many, many times. It is incredible. I have to mention Level of Concern by 21 Pilots. Like, I have to. It's so good. When they released it, well, rewind they announced that they were releasing a song the next day, one day, and I saw that tweet and like threw my phone across the room in excitement. I was so excited. I have listened to that song so many times.
That's a very
already.
Destructive excitement. Excitement.
I just had to do something, it was in my hand.
Right.
That too. But again, right before we started recording this podcast, we were talking about the like Disney Live sing-along thing, and I saw on Twitter that Ariana Grande was trending.
We have no choice but to stop.
Oh, of course. But I saw that Ariana Grande was trending on Twitter, and I was like, oh, what did she do? What's happening? Are we canceling her? But no, of course not. We are not canceling Ariana because she covered I Won't Say I'm in Love. Okay, when a celebrity is trending, is that not your first thought? Like, oh, what did they do? Okay, but thankfully we don't have to cancel her because she covered I Won't Say I'm in Love. And when I tell you I was fangirling super hard in this call right before we started recording, you better believe me. It is so good. Hercules is my favorite Disney movie, and so like anytime someone does a Hercules thing well, I love it. But this is like phenomenal. I really want them to do a live action Hercules and for her to play Megara and sing that song again every day of my life forever. That's it.
It's a strong argument. I wouldn't be averse to that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of those coming out. We all everybody that's our age grew up on Disney. I keep forgetting that not everybody grew up on Disney.
Weird. They're young people.
20 years old. Yeah, like my sister is 20. Like she's not that much younger than me, and she's just like, Brendan, I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. And I almost had to cancel her. Speaking of canceling people, but
can you imagine like not having seen the Goofy movie?
It couldn't be me.
Weird.
It couldn't be me. Before Pixar was like $1 billion enterprise, and it was just like some new.
We liked Pixar before they were cool.
Animating.
Everyone.
Yeah, pretty much. We're all hipsters. But God, this is not a Disney podcast. Okay,
it could be. We really could make it one.
It could be. You want to do another
Let's
podcast?
Do it right now.
We have one. I think we're millennials. We gotta have more than one.
We need to do the millennial thing and start a podcast during quarantine. So
a podcast.
We can start the
podcast.
Disney. No, we need like a quarantine podcast. Like everyone's doing something stupid during quarantine. Some people are like shaving their head. Some people are dyeing their hair. Don't call me out.
Mustaches. I don't know who that could be.
It's Brendan. It's horrible. Everyone shame him. I've also come very close to buying hair dye, so I really can't.
It's gonna happen.
Oh, probably, yeah.
You're gonna.
So like Haley Williams from Paramore and Haley Williams fame. I don't know what I just said.
Mhm.
Haley, we all know Haley Williams. Lead singer in Paramore, releases her own music.
do.
I've talked about her plenty. Also is like co-owner of a hair dye company, if you weren't aware. And so I was on their website the other day.
And I probably would have never been. So
yeah, I know, it's great. It's called Good Dye Young, but like dye as in dye. Yeah, see, it's great. But I was on their website yesterday, and I would have ordered their like bleacher and this like lavender hair color that is really pretty if it wasn't sold out. So I was like inches from doing it, but if I ever see one that I like and is available, I'll probably just buy it and do it, because I don't have anywhere to go. Like, who am I impressing here? No one. So it's fun.
Just yourself.
Exactly.
Just yourself, that's why I'm rocking the mustache.
But yeah, I've also not shaved or like even trimmed my beard in like over a month now, and it's getting really long, and like it looks awful. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it wouldn't look bad if I like put some.
Don't sell yourself short, Jake.
Well,
I'm sure
it would look good if I like put effort into making it look good. Like, the length isn't the issue; it's just the unruliness, and I don't care enough to make it look good right now for obvious reasons. So it just looks like crap.
That's valid. That's valid.
It's more of an experiment. Like, I want to see how big it gets, because I've never let it get as long as it currently is.
Well, you've got probably another couple months to do that experiment. We are hopelessly off track at this point, and it's about to take a turn. So then we're going to wrap up. That's going to do it for episode 19, and we will be back, like we said, in 2 weeks with episode 20. And we said it was going to be a shorter thing, but we ended up just kind of like BSing for the last 15 minutes about absolutely nothing.
So like, this is what we would do every week if we didn't try to like
variety.
Yeah, there we go.
is what it's become.
We would talk this
Variety
long
hour.
about music and other random stuff every week if we didn't like try to keep our podcast to like around an hour and a half at most. So now when we don't have that fear of going over time, we just talk about whatever we want.
The governor is off.
Yeah.
The governor is off. Yeah.
Anyway.
We're just like let loose here.
Yeah, as always, our socials are, I'm going to get it right this time, Brendan, at MrBdog46VGC.
I never remember where your underscore is. So you should just
Yeah,
do it
it's at
every
the end, at MajorBowman_. And then Soundproof Cast. Feel free to tweet us there on our personals, wherever. If you have any feedback for us, if you want to tell us how great we are, especially do that. Tell us what you want to hear. We're always
I'm getting
open
a little
to
sick of
feedback.
telling myself.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. But we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of
We sure will.
of length to be determined. So we will see you guys then.